swear this is a video about Magic and Commander, but first I need to explain what I mean by gravity. And so if you will indulge me, here's a quick game theory metaphysics of gravity. I was first exposed to the concept of gravity in games by one Steph Curry and his ability to draw defenders to him even when he didn't have the ball. This ability was termed gravity, and I think it fits really well. It essentially stretches the floor in a way that no one had ever done before, and it's game breaking. Like, as anyone who's watched Steph Curry break the heart of your team by just annihilating you with a rain of threes, it's really busted. For the longest time, I thought gravity was something exclusive to basketball. I just figured that it was something that could only really exist with someone like Steph Curry and then the people that followed him. Just because of having a ball in your hand and the ability to score was kind of specific to basketball. Then I started realizing it existed in football, with wide receivers specifically. Shout out to Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. Boy, does Tyreek Hill draw defenders like he has gravity. And then now Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson do the same thing, where if you watch their Skycam breakdown, they will literally be pulling multiple defenders with them because their sheer ability to catch the ball in traffic is so game-breaking that it just scares defenders, for lack of a better term, into chasing them, so that it creates gravity. And that opens up the field for everybody else, just like how Curry's ability to force defenders to follow him without the ball opens everything up for everybody else. If you don't believe me, I'll link to thinking basketball videos and some NFL stuff to show you. If you don't watch basketball, the best example I can give you of gravity is RCD World's video, how you have to guard Steph Curry, which I'll probably play a clip or something. He puts it very well that I think even people who don't watch basketball can understand. I'll link to that as well. How does that apply to Magic the Gathering? I would like to propose a theory that certain cards create gravity either by their sheer impact on the board, their potential to win the game, or what they introduce. The third one's the trickiest. I'll get to that last, more than likely. But first, what are cards that are good examples of gravity? And I'm going to start with the classic example of Jace the Mind Sculptor. If you have ever played in a lower power like draft format, or done the standard that he was in at the time, or even just drafted Vintage Cube to a certain extent, you understand that Jace the Mind Sculptor just completely imbalances a game of Magic on a clean board. It is just not fair. The pressure he exerts without really being able to tangibly win the game for a very long time is insane. And if you've just never played a 1v1 format and had someone resolve Jace the Mind Sculptor against you, +2, say you can keep the card and field it right in your stomach because you know you're not winning that game of Magic, but you don't get to concede yet. That's gravity. Another example from recent standard, which is a card that just got banned actually, is Corey Steelcutter. Holy smokes. If Corey Steelcutter survived the turn, let's all be real here, we all thought we were gonna die. Like, if you're on the draw and your opponent plays a turn 2 Corey Steelcutter on the play, your chances of winning that game just drop dramatically. Like, it is a must-answer card. The game now revolves around Corey Steelcutter. The last example I'll give is Up the Beanstalk. Up the Beanstalk resolves, and then your opponent solitudes your Draco or whatever. You're not winning. You just got a 2-for-1, and the just sheer tempo you lost is not insurmountable, but it doesn't feel good either. You're not likely to win that game anymore. And there's a reason Up the Beanstalk got banned out of Modern. Cards just have an innate gravity to them. Some of them, like a 3/3 for 3, has next to no gravity. It has very little pressure on the board. It has no enter the battlefield trigger. It just exists, and it attacks, and it blocks. Any of the cards I've previously mentioned the strongest gravity I've ever seen. And everything's context dependent. Jace the Mind Sculptor is, of course, not as good as it once was, but you get my metaphor. Now onto Commander, where gravity is a much, much more subtle thing, because it's much harder for a single card to have the same level of impact. Just because there's 160 life compared to 40, there's more cards in the hand, there's more opponents, there's politics. Just a single card having the same level of impact as Corey Steelcutter in a 1v1 or Jace the Mind Sculptor on a clean board is just not the same. But nonetheless, there are still cards that exert gravity. This is probably a little bit of an outdated example, but Orvold, the Fate Curse Dragon, the original one, boy, does that card just not necessarily kill you outright, but also, like, if that card, like, if its controller gets to untap with it, none of us feel great. Like, let's all be honest here. It is exerting such pressure on the game that it starts affecting everyone's decisions. The game stops becoming about, oh, we're all tired. It starts becoming, oh my goodness, someone has a Corvold in play and they just played a fetch land, and this is spiraling very quickly in on itself. However, I believe there are a couple mechanics that also exert not an unseen gravity on a game, but it's less noticeable if you're not looking for it. Those two mechanics are the monarchy and the initiative. Monarchy, like I talked about last time in my video from yesterday, is it lambda, blah, 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 blah. It exerts a pressure on a board that I think largely goes unnoticed, just because it is simply draw a card at the end of turn. However, it starts warping a game of Magic, because now it's about combat damage. And all games are about combat damage to a certain extent. However, this is about attacking the person with the monarchy, which is not the same as attacking the person in the lead. It can be, but oftentimes I've found it's not. It starts becoming about getting the monarchy and controlling the monarchy. When controlling the monarchy, you start gaining an advantage, which is obvious, drawing a card is good. But if you can control the monarchy for 3 turns, you have spent probably less mana than it should equate to do whatever it is that introduced the monarchy and also draw 3 cards. So, to counterplay the fact that people can't just let you sit there with the monarchy, they are forced to commit to the board, and they have to commit more than you so that they can attack through your blockers and get the monarchy for themselves. Seems simple enough. However, in practice, this leads to a crucial point of they need to commit more attackers than you have blockers. However, if they don't commit enough attackers, you can just play more blockers on your turn and thus keep the monarchy and continue to get the advantage from it. Or, if they commit creatures good enough, you can just board them. You can just reset the board. So, it exerts a pressure far beyond just draw a card, because it starts fundamentally impacting the game and how it has to be played moving forward. If someone controls the monarchy, it is more than likely not in your best interest to let them keep the monarchy uncontested. However, to contest the monarchy without having your own cards that introduce the monarchy, you are forced to commit creatures to the board. And that just brings it back to the step on the flowchart where it's just like, play creatures that are good, get board wiped. Play creatures that are bad, can't take the monarchy. And so you're in a weird prisoner's dilemma, and the only way out of it is to work together as a team to take down the monarchy. However, all that does is just create a new monarch, and you're to the flowchart, and you're back to the prisoner's dilemma. And the gravity of the monarchy is something that I don't think most players grasp, because it's just not seen. Like, yes, my friend group who had to suffer through 60 games of Aragorn understand this fundamental point about the monarchy. However, if you only see it 1 in every 6 games, I don't think you're likely to just acknowledge it, because you're just not in that prisoner's dilemma enough. On top of Commander just being a for fun format, and I don't blame anyone for not sitting in their closet recording philosophical debates on Magic. They're just there to cast, Aragorn because they like Lord of the Rings, which is cool. The initiative is a power creep monarchy. If you just read the dungeon in a vacuum, I don't think you're gonna get the full ramifications of it. But in short, it enters the battlefield, it draws a card. That card is a basic land, but it is still a card moving from your deck to your hand, i.e. drawing a card for all intents and purposes other than rules enforcement. Step 2, which all these happen at your upkeep, which is very important. You either get to make a creature bigger or you get card advantage. 3, you can have a mana advantage, you can have a board advantage, or you can make somebody lose 5 life. Room 4, you can have another board advantage, or you can draw a card. And then room 5 is just insane creature selection, buffing, and protection. Not to mention, most of the good initiative cards give you an extra bonus when you've completed the dungeon. So there's extra incentive to not let the person complete the dungeon. However, it still leaves you in the prisoner's dilemma of if someone has the initiative, there's no way to remove it. You can't Swords to Plowshares the initiative. You can't, Anguish on making the initiative. There's no way to remove it. It is just an emblem. It just exists in the game, and so its gravity is exerted until the game is concluded. So where does that leave us? I've opened Pandora's box. I've shown you the secret. I don't think I'm a big enough channel that this is going to become some widespread information. But if it ever did, there's a hypothetical world where everyone is forced into playing the initiative in the monarchy so that they can take other people's initiative in monarchy. But I think it just becomes WotC prints better and better creatures. And so at a certain point, the cards that introduce the initiative in the monarchy won't be good enough on their own, even while introducing the initiative in monarchy, to do anything. I mean, just look at MH3. Like, holy smokes, those creatures are messed up and a half. But that's not for here and now. Do I think people should play the initiative in monarchy more? Only if you enjoy it, really. Like, I think it's some of the most fun you will ever have in Commander because it just leads to these insane micro decisions mattering so much more than they normally do in Commander because, like I said, the gravity of the initiative in Monarchy is just like nothing else in Magic. However, if you don't enjoy those micro decisions, if you're just there to do your cool thing, probably not. While I made it sound like every deck can play the initiative in the Monarchy, in truth, its gravity makes it so whatever you're doing becomes secondary to the initiative in the Monarchy. For instance, I made a Yarok deck, and I included the initiative cards because I was like, this is cool, they trigger the initiative twice. That deck very quickly warped into, oh, well, the best thing in my deck is the initiative. Yeah, Yarok's cool. If I get Yarok out, my initiative cards are better, but, like, I don't need him. I legitimately started using my commander, who's a very strong commander who you really can't let people on tap with, as bait to then play the initiative in the Monarch, which sounds insane, but my opponents were in a lose-lose scenario where they let me keep Yarok, and thus when I played an initiative creature, I got double triggers, or they killed Yarok and then didn't have an extra removal spell for when I did introduce the initiative on the Monarchy. The whole mechanic is just a prisoner's dilemma to an almost infinite degree. Because with other cards that introduce a prisoner's dilemma, like say Rhystic Study, you can beast within a Rhystic Study. You can disenchant a Rhystic Study. There are ways to remove the problematic card. And if you don't have them, then you have to engage with it. However, there's no removal to it, so it's just there. For my money, the initiative and the Monarchy have the most gravity of any card in Commander outside of Underworld Breach and Thassa's Oracle, and we banished those cards to CEDH. So I think that tells you how the average player feels about people playing Thassa's Oracle and Underworld Breach. So, if you think about playing these cards, consider the following. There is a certain rule of cool that I think these cards break. As I talked about in my Aragorn video, I do think putting these cards in your deck with just the idea that they will help me win more games of Commander does miss the point of Commander in a way. So if you don't enjoy the initiative and all of the weird intricacies it brings, I don't think you should put it in your deck. If you do think you'd enjoy it, I'd probably consider trying it out in just a normal shell before you like try to build this all in initiative deck, just because so you can kind of feel its gravity. and you can start deck building from there because each person's going to build their deck differently. And maybe you go into more of a blink route, maybe you go into more of a reanimator route. We don't haven't even talked about this, but the initiative in the monarchy is so messed up because they're mostly on creatures, and creatures are blinkable, creatures are reanimatable, creatures are searchable, creatures block, creatures attack. Like, so many of the other cards that exert gravity don't also get to attack and block, which I know it's weird to say, like, Jace the Mind Sculptor is weaker than White Plume because it doesn't get to attack and block, but it's true. Like, attacking and blocking is the fundamental way in which you win most games of Magic. And so any card that gets to do it is just additional upside. Anyways, side tangent aside, just try playing it if you like making micro decisions. I would probably just start with the rare ones. Going much deeper than that leads you down this rabbit hole of just playing some potentially Jeskai based Aragorn deck that perhaps just plays every initiative card, and then your commander to introduce the monarchy and a bunch of board wipes and counter spells and wins however it feels like, but you can come to your own conclusions. That being said, thanks for watching. Leave a comment if you feel differently, or if there's another card that you would like to pose as presenting more gravity than the initiative in the monarchy. Keep in mind that to a certain extent there are cards I didn't name that would also fall under the CDH banner, but I would love to hear if you want to say like Soul Ring or something. Otherwise, maybe I'll make more of these, maybe I won't. I make no promises.